Hello, today I'm going to be reading chapter 15 of Takeout by Margaret Maron. Sigrid sat bolt upright in her bed Tuesday morning. Between all the complications of the case and the possibility that Newman had fathered a son who had a moral claim on his estate, if not a legal one, she had forgotten all about what the waiter in the diner had told her. As soon as the sun had been up long enough to suppose Hence was up as well, she called him, apologized if she had awakened him, and asked if he could locate the locksmith whose shop was across the street from that bench where the two men had died. "You're up early," Roman Termigra said, surprised to enter the kitchen and find Sigurd reading the paper. His green paisley dressing gown was open to reveal purple pajamas, and he quickly tightened the belt to close the front as he padded over to the coffee maker. She was not a morning person and normally slept as late as possible. Today she was already dressed for work in dark slacks, a fitted red jacket, and a white knit tee, with a colorful silk scarf loosely looped around her neck. So different from when they first met, he thought approvingly. Until Oscar Newman erupted into her life, she had worn her long, dark hair pulled back into a no-nonsense bun at the nape of her slender neck, and most of her clothes were either black or beige and strictly utilitarian. Because of him, she had cut her hair, learned to use makeup, made time for weekly manicures, and purged her closet of everything beige. She would never be as beautiful as her mother or her southern cousins, but neither would those wide gray eyes, and quiet air of self-containment let her be ignored. "Our eggs hatched yesterday morning," he announced. "Really? Does one of them have red feathers?" "No, they're all just little dark fuzzballs." "That sparrow's in for quite a surprise, isn't she?" "Oh, they'll look enough like her that she probably won't notice until it no, she probably won't notice once it starts fledging. By the time it gets red feathers, it'll be able to fend for itself." He was smiling until he took a second look at her eyes and saw the dark circles beneath them. "A rough night, my dear?" "A lot on my mind." She had spent yet another restless night thinking about this Vincent Haas and what it might have meant to Newman to learn he'd fathered a son with Lila Nagy. If he had read the letter from Austria that Hester had forwarded to him, had he been pleased or angry? Would he have accepted a middle-aged son, or refused to know him? "Do say it's a complicated case," Roman pleaded, as he poured himself a second cup of coffee and topped off her cup. "I need another plot twist for my new book. It's sagging in the middle, and I always feel it's cheating to throw in another killing just to hoist things up." She set aside the paper. Although she wasn't ready to tell anyone about Vincent Haas, Roman was looking so eager that she gave him a thumbnail sketch of the two murders under investigation. He had written scenarios for a neighborhood dance company, and he was a walking encyclopedia of gossipy stage lore, so he was entranced to hear that Sigurd's case involved the famous Charlotte Randolph. Maybe she put a tripwire over the stairs leading up to the star's dressing room, and the stagehand saw her. Then, when he heard she was writing her memoirs, maybe he tried to blackmail her. That's such a legendary story that she certainly wouldn't want the world to know that her lucky break wasn't an accident. So she sent him off with poisoned lasagna in a box from her own refrigerator. Why not? Opera is full of blood and gore. Tenors and bassos stabbing each other, sopranos throwing themselves off parapets, and poison is the classic choice for women, isn't it? He added 2 cubes of sugar to his coffee and stirred it thoughtfully. It probably wouldn't occur to her that he'd sit down the first place he could and start eating. That's something I'm sure she would never do. If he'd made it out of the neighborhood, you might never have connected the two of them. Possibly, she admitted as her phone rang. It was Hence, returning her earlier call. He had located the locksmith and was on his way to meet the man there. As she carried her cup over to the sink, Roman's face suddenly brightened. I know. Instead of another murder, maybe I can put one of the characters into a coma until it's time to reveal the killer's name. Sigurd smiled. That should work. Hence was waiting for her outside the locksmith's shop when she arrived 20 minutes later. While they waited for the owner to arrive, Hence said, "Did I tell you I have a copy of Franklin McCall's biography?" "Who?" "The critic that can't talk. The critic that reviewed Charlotte Randolph's performance. Franklin McCall. I looked her up in the index." And he patted himself on the back for being the first to notice her. Did he say how he happened to be there that particular night for a repeat? Actually, he did. He called it a fortuitous accident. A friend of his had an extra ticket that night, and he thought McCall hadn't been fair to the tenor in the first review. So he asked him to come along and give the guy another chance. Ironically, the tenor was completely ignored in his second review, and, "You must be our locksmith," he said to the man who hurried up to them on foot. "Sorry," the man said. "I had a lady with a baby locked out of her apartment on Prince Street. She left a spare key for her deadbolt with a neighbor, but the neighbor's out of town." He unlocked his own door and held it open for them to enter the dingy shop that was cluttered with tools, racks of key blanks, and several locks in various stages of disassembly. Excuse the mess, but I don't get a lot of walk-ins. Most of my work's off premises. Like today, I gotta go change the locks on a bunch of mailboxes a few blocks up from here, so this won't take long, will it? They assured him it wouldn't. "You want to hear about those guys I saw last Tuesday evening, right?" "Right," said Hence. "There's really not a lot I can tell you. I'd already closed up for the day, and I was on my way to go get something to eat when a man called, wanting me to come change the locks so his soon-to-be ex-girlfriend couldn't get in and strip the place. I came back here to pick up a new deadbolt, and I saw these 2 men across the street at the bench. One guy was sitting there eating out of a takeout box, and the other one was standing on the side talking to him." "What time was that?" "Around 7:30, maybe 8. "Can you describe them?" "Well, the guy on the bench looked like an old hippie, a beard and a white hair in a ponytail. I never saw the face of the other one. Dark hair, maybe going gray, and a lot of it." He rubbed the bald spot on top of his head with a rueful smile. You don't really notice hair till you don't really notice hair till you start to lose it. Tall, short, fat, skinny?" "Not tall. In fact, he was real short. Couldn't have been much over 5 feet. And sort of thin. He had on a uniform, coveralls anyhow. Dark green or black, I couldn't say. The only reason I even noticed them was because they both had takeout boxes, and I was pretty hungry. They said at the diner 2 guys died." "Those 2? "Your old hippie was one of 'em," said Hence. The other was someone different." "Did you see anyone join them, or what the short guy did?" "Sorry." As he talked, the locksmith had been opening and closing long, 3 by 5 inch drawers beneath the counter at the rear of the shop. I really need to label these things, he said, slamming one shut in frustration. Irritation turned to smiles as he looked into another drawer. Ah, here they are. He fished out a handful of small locks in individual plastic bags and put them in his tool bag. If we're done here, Sigrid thanked him for his help and handed him her card. If you see that short man again, or if you think of anything else you forgot to mention, please call me. Back out on the sidewalk, Hent said, You thinking the same thing I am? Ms. Delvitro's Elbridge? Yeah. At number 409, they walked down 3 steps to the basement door beneath the stoop and rang the bell. When Hens's second ring received no answer, they went up to the main door, and this time the door opened a crack and the housekeeper's wrinkled face peered up at him. Yes? He held out his badge. Detective Hens, ma'am. Before he could say more, her thick gray eyebrows drew together tightly. Signora Del Vitro is still asleep. You cannot see her now. It's Mr. Salvador we want to question, Miss Orlando, Sigrid said. He doesn't answer his bell. Is he here? The thick oak door opened wider and her voice dropped to a whisper. Come through, but be quiet. She likes to sleep till 10. That was something Sigrid could appreciate, but she said nothing. Miss Orlando led them down the long dark hall, past the staircase to a bright and surprisingly modern kitchen. Sigrid rather expected to see appliances from the 40s or 50s. Instead, everything was up to date. When the housekeeper had closed the swinging door to the hallway, she spoke in a normal voice. He's out in the garden. Actually, Miss Orlando, we have a question for you too. Why did you lie about seeing Maddie last Tuesday? Miss Orlando glared at them, her eyebrows beetling furiously. Lie? Who says I lied? It wasn't you who took him the fettuccine, was it? It was Mr. Salvador. We have a witness who saw him there at the bench. Her belligerent, wrinkled face crumpled so abruptly it was like watching air escape from a child's balloon. Please, Lieutenant, don't tell the Signora. Why not? Sigrid asked. Why would she care which one of you took it? Look at me, Lieutenant. Look at me. She held her hands out to them. They were gnarled and arthritic. I am old and everything hurts. To walk, to vacuum, to make the beds. But if I am of no use, if I cannot do what she asks, what happens to me? I have no family. What will I do? Where will I go? Surely Ms. Del Vitro wouldn't turn you out onto the streets. Haven't you been with her for years? The old woman nodded tearfully, and her accent had become more pronounced. 42, almost 43 years. Since the first day they brought Aria home from the hospital, the cook had quit. The housemaid went back to Chicago. I was supposed to be the baby's nursemaid, but there was only me, and she wouldn't take the breast, only the bottle, so I was up and down those stairs all night. I was young and strong, though, and so was my Signora. Together we did everything the first week, until Signor Benito hired more help. Someone to clean, someone to cook. I was not trained as a cook, but every week I made cannelloni for Signor Benito, and sometimes my spaghetti della Romano. He said it tasted like his own mother used to make. Spaghetti? Chicken? Sigrid asked. Chicken livers sautéed in butter with fresh basil and served on buttered toast. It sounded like something Roman would like, but Sigurd resisted the temptation to ask for the recipe. While he was alive and Arya was little, I only cooked special things he liked. But after he died and Arya was married, it was just the Signora and me. You take care of this whole big house and cook too? We have a cleaning service every week and Sal helps, like taking food down to that bench in your place. Please, you won't tell her, will you? Not if we don't have to. Lieutenant? Hans pointed toward the window, and Sigurd saw the handyman open the garage door and go inside. Grimacing with pain as she stood, Miss Orlando opened the back door onto the deck. When you finish, leave through the garage so she doesn't see you. And that's the end of chapter 15, and I will be posting chapter 16 in an hour. And as always, have a wonderful day.